Thanks for convening at short notice. I can't believe it. What were you guys doing in Los Alamos?
We were in a race against
The Barbies.
and I know what it means if
With all the Barbies.
And Ken.
have a bomb.
Now the race is against the
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Not unless we started.
Robert. They just fired the starting gun.
You are the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared.
All right, Ken, you're on. Detonator charge.
8, 7, 6.
Come on, Barbie, let's go party.
You're listening to Duck Dust FM. So, my dear viewer, it's here. The countdown has reached 0, and the cultural event of a 5-month generation has exploded into theaters in the pinkest and most hellishly ominous way imaginable. Christopher Nolan's atomic drama and Greta Gerwig's feminist live-action robot chicken films have taken to cinemas worldwide with the partial exclusion of Vietnam and 2 select cities in Japan. The film begins with its 2001 Space Odyssey impression from the teaser and some Helen Mirren narration about how stereotypical Barbie, as she's called, lives in Barbie Land, a completely matriarchal society where everything is perfect and there are no problems whatsoever. And Barbie is not just one doll, but it's an identity that every size, race, and disability, especially the ones that increase DEI standards, carry, instead of different costumes of one doll. Yes, person in the comments, maybe that's what Barbie is supposed to be. Whatever. This includes dolls like Pregnant Barbie, discontinued because of patriarchy, which we'll touch on very soon, and other Barbies like President Barbie, Supreme Court Barbies, Wheelchair Barbies, Man Barbies, Kens, and so on. One day Barbie starts having thoughts of death and getting other abnormalities in her perfect world, like flat feet and chronic depression. She goes to visit Kate McKinnon Barbie, who does her Kate McKinnon impression, and tells her to find a kid playing with her in the real world, showing her on a map to go to the country of Los Angeles and stay away from what wasn't firebombed in Vietnam.
We never admitted we sent troops into China.
Wait, what? Anyway, Barbie leaves and quickly discovers that Ken has tagged along. Barbie's Ken is in a constant battle with Shang-Chi Ken for Barbie's heart and confides his heartbreak in BFF Bob Marley from Secret Invasion Ken. Gosling Ken is known as Beach Ken, and he's the polar opposite of the partially suave Giga Chad Ken in Toy Story 3, but does try to impress and get it on with Barbie, despite neither knowing what sex is or how to do it.
How are we doing this again? None of us have working junk.
Shut up and rub my lump.
On the matter of Toy Story, the concept is basically the same with the exception of the toy world being outside of the physical real world, and only accessed through a ridiculous multiverse of madness style multi-universe jump to reach the destination of Los Santos, or the same Los Angeles from She-Hulk, where every single last man is a raging misogynist asshole whose sole purpose in life is to uphold the supposed patriarchy, an ideal that Ken soon finds attractive. All the while, Barbie has gone across the fentanyl zombie-laced cityscape, where all have been chased off by production LA, and tracked down the daughter of Gloria, a Mattel secretary, and former Barbie lover. Upon meeting Ugly Betty's smug modern culture encapsulation of a daughter, Barbie's whole life is outed as an alleged lie by a hormonal 15-year-old who whines about Barbie's unrealistic beauty standards, her contribution to climate change, unwavering enforcement of problematic capitalist ideals, and even a fascist to cover all bases.
Why not?
Mattel's Secret Service eventually shows up and takes Barbie to see CEO Will Ferrell, and he does his best Will Ferrell impression and directs Barbie to get back in the box where she belongs. But she runs away after discovering the company is not run by a woman, while Ferrell pleads that he's earned his patriarchy pass because he has women and Jewish friends. Mattel chases Gloria, her daughter, and Barbie through the city in her 2024 Chevy Equinox with 3.4% APR financing and $0 down payment if you act now, while Mattel opts for some some masculine Suburbans. Meanwhile, Ken continues his quest to understand and spread the patriarchy, showing us a montage of all the problematic masculine things that are patriarchal, like golf, beer, and patriotism. He eventually returns to Barbie Land to get help before Barbie and her crew arrive soon after to find it's been converted into Jacksonville Beach, a downgrade to the Supreme Court of Barbies that have now become cocktail waitresses, but an upgrade to inebriated men and women looking for a Valhalla for spring break. Kendom Dojo Something, as it's now referred to, is a patriarchal alternative of Barbie Land that's portrayed as something out of The Handmaid's Tale. Supreme dictator of Patriarchy Land Ken tries to explain this all to Barbie and says that they have it all figured out in Century City, a Hollywood suburb and home to studios like Fox, a highly possible dig, no doubt, at sexism in Hollywood. Coming from someone whose biggest influence is Woody Allen,
What do you want? It was my first play.
and the one company that doesn't keep its left turn signal blinking at all hours of the day, though that's fading quickly.
Go fuck yourself.
Unlike the immune Warner Brothers Discovery, which markets themselves at least 2 separate times in the movie. So Gloria and her daughter go to escape Barbie Land with androgynous Barbie, or Alan, who beats up the Kens working on the wall and allows them to go back and help Barbie instead of returning to the real world. Then after an awkward fourth wall break about Margot Robbie being too hot to play Barbie, agreed, Barbie tells Gloria she's not good enough, and then Gloria delivers the Floyd Mayweather beatdown to the horse that is the feminist messaging in this film, delivering an extended diatribe about how women don't have to do this, and that they are subjugated, blame for all of man's problems, and make a Snyder Cut joke. They then decide to team up to honeypot and distract the Kens by being interested in them and their interests, like Photoshop and The Godfather, and turn them against themselves, a plan that works efficiently, as they have a musical face-off before an Omaha Beach-style catfight. This drags on while America Ferrera deprograms the Barbie's patriarchy brainwashing, having successfully distracted the Kens and restored the Barbie Constitution and the democracy of one-party rule. Didn't even call it a Kenstitution. Missed opportunity. The Kens become the women of the fictional real world, and Barbie moves to the real world. Well, you know, like everything, it could have gone one of 2 ways. Subverted our expectations in the non-Disney good way, or been the worst possible version, and exactly what was starting to leak out in the past few weeks, despite one of the most wide and successful marketing campaigns in recent memory. Unfortunately, Barbie, despite what it kept insisting in trailers, was exactly what we expected, and a pitiful waste of interesting ideas and some talented actors. And that's one of its main problems. For every scene Robbie basks in the role of plastic doll come to life and tries to build her character, it's undone by nonsensical political or men-bashing dialogue that doesn't really make you all too sympathetic for some of the characters, yet Margot does her best. Ryan Gosling's Ken was marked early on to be the standout role, but suffers the same fate as Barbie, only instead being reduced to toxic patriarchal crusader Ken. I would have loved to see a realistic Ken side of this. Men and masculinity are the easy and frequent target of the jokes, yet the Kens are often more effeminate than the Barbies, especially in their musical numbers.
I heard you people try to get a little track lead, not to jump around like a bunch of Kansas City faggots.
On the creative level, the messaging is so deep it's hard to differentiate which universe is more unrealistic, or reality challenged as it's put. As if that wasn't enough, the inconsistent fourth wall breaks and on-the-nose dialogue doesn't help. They even censored one of the allotted F-bombs in a PG-13 movie. If you're gonna use it, do it all and do it right.
Where is it? It's gotta be here. Out of order! Fuck! Even in the future, nothing works!
Not that the rest of this movie was anywhere near appropriate for younger audiences. It's a real shame to see such talent, including that of Gerwig, directing at least, grab Hollywood out of the dark ages with immense hype only to trip on our own politics and deliver the most disappointing, not worst, film of the year thus far. 3 out of 10. Those who tried did, but take note from the atrocity that you apparently tried to mirror and discover, likely in the next few weeks, that blatant partisan politics, blind hatred of men, and big-budgeted value brand set pieces is a formula often used in modern Hollywood, but a formula that rarely finds success, and a legacy of anything but the kind praise received by the very films and men it mocks. So after running to the IMAX screening after a quick stop in the bathroom,
If you guys mind if I go in the bathroom and smoke some PCP?
Nah, dude.
I took my seat in the standing room only sellout of Oppenheimer, and since it's actually a good movie, I'll give a spoiler warning for once, even though you can pretty much guess what happens. The film begins with a young Oppenheimer at Cambridge getting frustrated enough to poison his tutor's apple with cyanide, but stops him before he eats it, and running into Danish physicist Kenneth Braga, not playing an evil Russian billionaire for the first time in years. Oppenheimer's brilliance leads him to get teaching jobs at Caltech and Berkeley, where he meets a reanimated corpse of Josh Hartnett's career, Heisenberg, and even Einstein. Yet, much like present-day Berkeley, 1930s Berkeley is littered with communists. One of these communists, besides his own brother, is Jean Tatlock, played by Florence Pugh, and her and Oppenheimer go back and forth between the distinction of Soviet communism and real communism. But Oppie mostly calls out her bullshit and brings up the Germans' ideal of socialism is not far off from communism. But then Jean Tatlock proceeds to fuck the capitalism out of him while he is forced to recite his famous Hindu scripture quoting mid-coitus.
Now I am become
Hard.
the destroyer.
Florence Pugh. After Germany splits the atom and eventually invades Poland to begin the war, Oppenheimer is approached by Colonel Leslie Groves to develop an atomic weapon for America, and Oppie tells him that their one hope is anti-Semitism. No, like really. Oppenheimer is put in charge of the Manhattan Project after disavowing communism and begins to recruit scientists from all around the country to converge at Los Alamos, a barren New Mexican desert being set up as the project headquarters. All while this is happening, we are intercut with the point of view of Louis Strauss, played by Robert Downey Jr., Oppenheimer's rival and former colleague who is being confirmed for a cabinet position, but haunted by the past activities of Oppenheimer in Los Alamos, along with Oppenheimer's own mini-trial over revoking his security clearance because of his past communist ties and suspected espionage at Los Alamos. Jean Tatlock then gets Marilyn Monroe, and Oppie loses it mid-project. The German surrender causes the Los Alamos scientists to question continuing to construct such a weapon, but Oppenheimer informs them that Japan is still fighting, much to their disapproval. Regardless, the bomb is completed and the Trinity test is initiated, despite the possibility of atmospheric ignition and some other problems.
Get ready to run. We've got 25 minutes. 15 minutes. 5 minutes. 6 minutes?
Now, for all the faults in the movie, which there aren't many, the Trinity scene almost makes up for them, and then some. I can't remember seeing such a masterfully shot, directed, acted, intense, and uncomfortably powerful scene in the last decade in Hollywood. This is the scene you need to see in IMAX if you can. Oppenheimer is clearly impressed by the blast, but instantly is aware that he's become God in the worst way. It's a powerful scene with all too many real-world implications that puts an often-forgotten nightmare scenario at the forefront of our minds, even long after you walk out of the theater. Oppenheimer addresses Los Alamos after an entrance that will surely become a meme template for years to come, and gives a confident speech to his colleagues while already suffering from the PTSD of what he just unleashed on mankind. However, Oppenheimer is left out of the loop and hears on the radio that Hiroshima and Nagasaki have been bombed with a more than successful use of the bomb's potential, killing hundreds of thousands. Feeling guilty, Oppenheimer meets with President Truman.
Fellas, this visit's top secret. No one's to know about it, except the senior officers, scientists, and a single conspiracy not no one will believe.
There he voices his concerns and emotions, to which Truman says he dropped the bomb, not him, and calls him a pussy for getting emotional. Oppenheimer later advocates against more nukes as the Cold War heats up, especially hydrogen bombs being developed at Los Alamos by colleague Edward Teller, who is also working on alien spacecraft.
Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb.
Maybe. Louis Strauss turns out to be the ultimate unreliable narrator and admits he set up Oppenheimer by exploiting McCarthyism and exposing the communist past of him, his wife, his affair with Jean Tatlock, and so on. Despite winning the war for America, his security clearance is ultimately revoked, yet Rami Malek's testimony of Strauss's grudges against Oppenheimer and his own skeletons deny him the cabinet position, before we get a beautiful shot of the atmosphere igniting to end the film. For 3 hours and a lot of talking, the film is fairly well paced, jamming in as much historical significance as possible to grasp the full story, but still entertaining you while doing it. It's a very Christopher Nolan film, from the use of landscape and a blaring score running throughout, and it brings out his best tendencies, yet also the worst, that being the mostly inaudible dialogue and some other sound mixing problems. However, this may be his best directorial effort since the one that made him what he is today. The acting is remarkable across the board, and not just the Oscar-worthy performances of Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. as the two sides of the nuclear coin, but the stacked supporting cast too. Gary Oldman's Truman, Florence Pugh, Tom Conti's Einstein, Josh Hartnett, Benny Sadfied's Edward Teller, Casey Affleck, Matt Damon, Florence Pugh's huge breasts, Emily Blunt, and even Josh Peck all gave great performances in their own way. Yet the obvious standout is Murphy in the titular role, playing a man eternally tortured by his own creation and its implications that will outlive him, and that's where the movie really shines. The moral implications of nuclear weapons and warfare are at the forefront for the entire film, and it does an incredible job of tackling some of the greatest questions and ethical dilemmas of World War II, displaying a wide range of opinions and viewpoints, letting the audience decide for themselves the cost and benefits of a very real and frightening technology. What a novel concept in modern Hollywood. Speaking of modern Hollywood, though, this movie does take a fairly lighthearted view of communism for a good deal of the movie, with diatribes about its good coming from multiple different people, including some from Oppenheimer at one point, who is hated for his left-wing views.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
That and some hard-to-follow plot points are really the only thing that drags the film down. 9 out of 10. Nolan outdoes himself and makes up for any doubt cast by Tenet, and proves that with enough thought and talent, an important but complicated story can be told in an artistic and entertaining way. Barbie may dominate the box office, for the first few weeks at least, and blow Oppenheimer away, yet when the dust settles, no amount of professional idiots like Grace Randolph calling Barbie one of the greatest films and hopelessly propping up a bland, corporatized 2-hour commercial can outlive the impact, unfortunate timelessness, and meaning of Oppenheimer. Barbie may somehow get the Oscar noms and wins abundant while Oppenheimer is left on the diversity cutting room floor, but the better film will prevail because it has meaning, and after all, that's what hits people. When you go to sleep after these films, some may fear another Barbie movie, but all, whether they know it or not, will fear nuclear annihilation.
Fucking like and subscribe for duck's sake.
The Duke.